Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blitz Sports Media. I'm Ryan Linkletter, and we are back with Brady Penn after his one-day absence. We're back with our weekend predictions for Week 12. Not as an exciting slate as we had in Week 11, but definitely some good games here. And we're going to start in Carolina, Chiefs-Panthers. Is this the Chiefs get-back game?
Yeah, I think that this will be a game where the Chiefs iron out some kinks and try and figure some things out. It seems like they're going to try and implement Isaiah Pacheco back in there this week. Is that correct?
No, he's out. Him and
He's,
Amenahue
he's
are out
out?
again. Yep.
Interesting. I had just seen 2 days ago that he was trending towards playing. So at least another week of Kareem Hunt getting the majority of those carries. I think that they're going to try and find Xavier Worthy again, like they were early on last week. Obviously, they didn't go to him again after that lack of a toe drag on the deep ball, which Mahomes took upon himself on that play. Good leadership, but I think they're going to look for Worthy more often. I think they're going to try and exploit some matchups against a really bad Panthers run defense. And I will say, I'm not sure this game is just going to be a runaway blowout because Bryce Young has been playing better, and I don't think the Panthers have a chance to win this game, but I think they could keep it within two scores, maybe within 14 going into the latter part of the game. I'm going with Kansas City 30-17. I think this is the second time this year that they get in that 30-point threshold.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs definitely are going to have their get back game. We just saw them sign DJ Humphries, which is definitely interesting. They're trying to address that left tackle position, and they signed him to a pretty sizable deal, $2 million base salary, up to $4.5 million with incentives, and that kind of tells you he could potentially be a starter there. So we'll see if he gets worked into that starting lineup. Definitely interesting there, but I do agree with you. I think this is a game where they're going to involve Xavier Worthy a lot. They're going to try to figure some more things out on that offense. They tried different stuff last week against Buffalo. Obviously, it didn't work very well, but they're going to get DeAndre Hopkins, Juju, and Xavier Worthy more of those three wide receiver snaps, I feel like, instead of a five-man rotation like they've been rolling with this season. And I do think Mahomes has a pretty good day. I think they have a good day on offense. And defensively, they actually haven't been as impressive as some people think this year. Their pass rush is not getting home yet. And I do think that cornerback two position is a problem, but I think this is a game where they could generate good pressure against the Panthers and feel a little bit better about themselves before Charles Omenihu gets back. So I got the Chiefs in this one, and I expect them to cover that spread this week. I got them by 13. You got them by 13 as well. So I think they're both going to cover. Let's head into Chicago. I got something different than you here. I know what you think of the Vikings and the Bears game.
Yeah, I'm leaning with Minnesota here. They've been a little bit sloppy the last 2 weeks. I feel like against some bad competition. I feel like Sam Darnold has sort of started to see that regression hit that some of us saw coming against the Titans and the Jaguars. And I'm not sure that he's going to have a super clean game again this week, but even with the Bears looking a little bit better on offense last week, I still am not sure they'll be able to get a lot going against a really good Minnesota defense. And in a divisional game, I think I'll take the Vikings by a score 24-17.
I like the Bears in this one. I think they match up well against the Vikings, who struggle slowing down the passing game at times. And, I think the Bears' offense looked better enough for me to kind of buy into them this week against the Vikings. I think they match up well in the run game against the Vikings. Jalen Johnson could give Justin Jefferson some problems, slow him down just enough. And it'll be interesting. I think this one's going to be tighter than people think. And the Bears are a little bit better than people think at this point, especially coming off that Packers game. They looked more energetic, enthusiastic. We'll see the vibes, though, after that block kick. We saw the Broncos come back and just steamroll teams after that win. After that block kick. So I'm going to go with the Bears in this one, an upset win over the Vikings. And that's the thing with the Vikings. They got these tough division games coming up, and it's going to be a big telltale sign where they kind of fall in the NFC over these next few games. Let's go to an AFC South matchup here. Titans versus the Texans. Brady, who do you have?
I'm leaning Houston. We saw Houston beat up on a bad Cowboys team last week, and I actually think the Titans will be more competitive than Dallas was last week just because their passing defense has given so many teams fits, even on a team with so many issues. And I think Will Levis, ever since his benching, this is actually a common theme we've been seeing. Guys get benched and come back a little bit better so far between AR, Bryce Young, Will Levis. Granted, in small sample sizes, these year two guys getting benched and coming back stronger. I think that he'll have a decent game, but I like the Texans here just because of the talent gap, and I'm going to take them 27-20 here in a tight divisional matchup.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tighter than the spread suggests. I got them 24-21. And you know what hurts? L'Jarius Sneed hasn't played in a long time. That Titans pass defense has definitely saw the effects of that. They've struggled lately, and this could be a really good get-back game for that passing offense that struggled over the last 5 weeks. Nico's second week back, Tank Dell, and maybe a little bit of Dalton Schultz more involved this week. We'll see what happens. I do think they get the passing game going and win 24-21 in that one. Lions at Colts here. I think the Colts match up very poorly on defense against this Lions offense. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Lions are just going to keep rolling, and they'll stay atop the power rankings this week, in my opinion. I actually expect them to have a really good game running the football. I think Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are both good fantasy plays this week. If they're ever not, I mean, they seem both pretty automatic, but definitely this week, take advantage there. I like the Lions by 2 scores, 34-20 in this one.
Yeah, I got them 35-21 in this one. I just think they're going to be very hard to stop. And, they're not going to let up either. They made it very clear they're going to try to get up by 8
The Lions
scores.
are big on those style points, man.
Yeah, they are big on the style points. They're not going to let up. And I got them 35-21. I do think it's going to be interesting to see week 2. What do we get of AR? Obviously, he had his best game of the season last week. We'll see if we get that again against the Lions. And who knows? They might score more points than people expect. But I think their Lions offense is too overpowering for this mediocre Colts defense to stop.
Yeah,
Patriots at Dolphins. This is a very big game for the Dolphins here. Like this is their season, it feels like. If they win this one, they're right back in the mix.
Yeah, they moved to 5-6 with a win, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I like the Dolphins here. The Dolphins won the first matchup in this divisional get-together earlier in the year with Jacoby Brissett and Snoop Huntley playing. Obviously, this will be Drake May against Tua. And I actually think that Miami's going to win this game off of their defense. Their defense has been playing really well the last few weeks. They played really well against Matthew Stafford and company. I like a lot of their pieces. And even though Jalen Ramsey, I think, has taken a step back, they've got a few guys that are looking really, really good. And Calais Campbell has been like an ageless wonder. Like this dude just continues to wreak havoc on the interior of the D-line. And I like the Dolphins to do just enough scoring-wise and defensively to get this win, 28-19. I do think that we see another solid showing from Drake May.
Yeah, and I was just going to talk about that too. I think this one's up to how many turnovers Drake May has. If he's careful with the ball, this is going to be a one-score game late, and whoever has the ball last is going to go and win it. If he's not careful with the ball, I think the Dolphins are going to win by 2 scores. And, the Dolphins, since Tua came back, like it hasn't been explosive, hasn't necessarily been pretty, but they're just getting at least 27 points in every contest right now. If the defense just holds up this week, which I think they will, I do like the Dolphins, and I'm interested to see if Jalen Waddle finally gets going. I mean, they continue to not involve him in the game plan. Jonnu Smith.
I would say Jonnu Smith has been taking his touches.
Jonnu Smith has taken his rent and run away with it, and Jalen Waddle has been relegated to that wide receiver 4 position. So I'm interested to see, like, good matchup for him again this week. I wouldn't start him by any means in fantasy football, but we'll see if they get him more involved. Buccaneers at the Giants this week. Mike Evans is back. Daniel Jones is a free agent. Brady, who are you taking in this one?
The NFC South is starting to seem like a bit of a foregone conclusion these last few weeks, but the Bucs have kind of stood in the fire. They got a bye week to get a little bit more healthy, and although we probably won't see Chris Godwin again the rest of the year, they're creeping back up on Atlanta, even with the 2 head-to-head losses, and I think that this week will propel them even closer with a win over the Giants. I mean, we talked about this the other night. The Giants are not trying to win games right now. They're throwing Tommy DeVito out there. They did just release Daniel Jones earlier today, which, by the way, it would be hilarious if the Cowboys picked him up for Thanksgiving and started him. I don't know.
Dude, that would be the best case scenario for the Cowboys options in fantasy football is if they go and pick up Danny Dimes. I trust Rico. I trust Fergie. And obviously you have CeeDee Lamb. Like that offense automatically becomes better with Daniel Jones at quarterback. And like they mentioned that they're like Jerry Jones does not want to give up on the season. They don't want to tank, but if he really believes that, right, they'll go sign Daniel Jones. They'll make this offense better. It'll help them in the short term. And if they roll with Cooper Rush, every option in fantasy football is bad. Like I don't trust any of these guys, and it's just the opposite of what Jerry's saying.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And so back to the point of the Giants, I just don't see them winning this game. I think the Bucs are going to continue to climb back into the race here. I think Bucky Irving has a big game, and we'll see what Mike Evans is able to do in his return. But I like the Bucs by 2 scores here, 30-16.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how many snaps he actually plays in this one. If they kind of ease him back in around that 50% snap count, we'll see what they get. But I got the Bucs by 2 scores. I just think the Giants locker room right now it's kind of reeling after the Daniel Jones thing. So I don't think they have good chances in this one. So I got the Bucs by 2 scores as well. Cowboys at Commanders. Brady, what do you got in this one?
I think it's pretty obvious. I think it's like we just talked about. The Cowboys are reeling, and the Commanders are all of a sudden needing a win. They've lost back-to-back games against contending teams in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and they're back at home now. I think that this is going to be a good, kind of like you said, a get-back game, a get-right game, this time for the Commanders. I like them by multiple scores here. I do think that their defense has been a little bit exposed the last 2 weeks, and the Cowboys might be able to score a bit. But I like the Commanders 31-17 here and getting a home win.
Dude, it's Dan Quinn. This is going to be a Dan Quinn legacy performance. He's going to have a lot of stuff cooked up for this Cowboys offense for sure. And without Dak Prescott, I think they're going to be very successful in their game plan this week. I get the Commanders by multiple scores, and I'm interested to see, does Jaden Daniels' rushing increase? Because Dan Quinn claims he doesn't have a rib injury anymore. It's not affecting him, but I don't know how much I believe that or buy that. We'll see against an easy matchup. They've had 2 tough matchups the last.
And a long week. They've had a long week of prep, too.
Yeah, they've had a long week of prep. 2 tough matchups before this. Like, this is the week where we're really going to see, is Jaden Daniels like the guy we've seen the last 2 weeks, or is he going to go back to that elite rushing volume with a very efficient passing game that we saw early on to start the season? But I like the Commanders 34-13 in this matchup. Broncos at the Raiders. Brady, who do you got?
I think it's going to be Denver. I think they're going to get back-to-back wins following that tough Kansas City loss. And I think Bo Nix's confidence will continue to grow with a road win here. I like Denver by 2 scores, 28-13. I mean, the Raiders' offense is really bad. The Broncos' defense is really good, and that's really all you need. The Broncos probably only need to score 17 points to win this game, but they'll get a little bit more. 28-13 Broncos is what I'm rolling with.
Yeah, and like we've mentioned before this, like another blowout matchup in this week, and I think the Broncos are just going to manhandle the Raiders offense this week with their blitzing packages they've been very successful on this season. Bo Nix is playing great football right now. We'll see if that trend continues this week against the Raiders. I fully expect it to. And I like the Broncos in this one, and they're putting themselves in a great position to make a playoff push at the end of the season. And if they keep winning, it's not looking great for the Cincinnati Bengals, Brady.
Right.
Cardinals at the Seahawks, 49ers at the Packers. No Jordan, I can't talk right now. No Brock Purdy, no Nick Bosa. It's not looking good for San Francisco.
No, it's not at all. And their next 2 games are against the Packers and the Bills. So they've got to find something out quickly. They got to try and pull a rabbit out of their hat. And I think that their best path to success this week is literally just have a Christian McCaffrey game. Let Christian McCaffrey try and run wild. Obviously, with Brandon Allen, you're not going to do much in the passing game. I don't see a way that they win this game. I think Green Bay is going to continue to roll and continue to be in contention for that top spot in the NFC North, and especially the top spot in the NFC wildcard race. And I know you're predicting a Vikings loss. The Vikings better be careful, because if they do lose this week and the Packers get the victory, then they are tied. I know Minnesota right now has the first matchup head-to-head win, but they do play again, and all of a sudden the NFC North gets even tighter if that does come to be the case. And you
want to play the NFC South team if you're a 5 seed. Like, you want that game. You want the NFC South team when you get into this playoff mix.
Definitely. But I'm rolling with Green Bay here, 28-17. I think Jordan Love and the offense will do enough, and I think the defense will actually create a really big turnover at some point in this ball game. I don't think it'll be enough just to rely on Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, and I mean, this is going to take everything out of Kyle Shanahan. Like, this is a Kyle Shanahan game where he's going to have to be at his best that he's ever been to go win this ball game without his quarterback right now, and they need it more than ever. Like, this is a must-win game for them, and they don't have 2 of their star players, so it's not looking great. I get the Packers in this one, and the only way I actually see them losing this game is if Jordan Love throws multiple interceptions and gives the 49ers elite field position that allows them to basically, take advantage of some, I don't know, I don't want to say just like drives they shouldn't be in that position, but like if they're opportunistic with their turnovers, the 49ers could easily steal this one against the Packers on the road, but I'm just not seeing it. I think the Green Bay Packers are more talented than the 49ers right now without Purdy and Bosa. So I'm going Packers as well, 24-17. NFC West matchup here, Cardinals and the Seahawks. Brady, who are you going with in this one?
I like Arizona, man. I keep riding this Arizona Cardinals train. I think that there is a legitimate argument to be made for Kyler Murray being QB1 in the NFC so far this year. I truly believe it. I know Jared Goff would be the popular pick, and I've voiced my opinions on both these guys plenty of times before. There's no need to rehash there, but I think Kyler Murray's been really good, and I think they're starting to figure something out with the duo of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. I think the offense is starting to roll through them with a solid mix of running the ball with James Conner, and this defense has been better than we expected. I know Seattle got the emotional, tight, last-minute win against the Niners last week, but they scored like 17 points. I'm not sure this offense is lethal enough for the Seahawks to keep up with what I think the Arizona Cardinals will be able to do. I do think it'll actually end up being a one-score game, though, and I'm going to go with the Cardinals 24-20 here.
Yeah. Let's see here. This is a tough one because like the Seahawks are a tough team to read. Like they play some good football some weeks, and some weeks they just are an absolute disaster. They played decent enough against the NFC West, where I think this will be a close matchup.
We need to ask Seahawks Depot, our good friend.
What do you think? Yeah, he's always riding the Seahawks. He's
no bias,
but he's always riding the Seahawks. Right, you mentioned the Cardinals are a hot team right now. Obviously, the bye week, we'll see if they continue that hot streak. But Kyler Murray's been playing great football. Looks like Drew Petzing's offense is finally starting to take shape. Jonathan Gannon's defense has been playing great football here lately. I like the Cardinals in this one. I do think the Seahawks get theirs on offense, and it might come down to the turnover battle. Can Geno Smith avoid a stupid play like he's had basically every game this season where he's just gave the ball to the other team and handed it off? Like no one's talking about Geno Smith handing the ball to the other teams, but it's always Will Levis highlights you see.
Well, it's Geno. It's a three-way tie for the interception lead right now between Love, Geno, and Mahomes. That's an interesting group.
It is such an interesting group. But, yeah, I got the Cardinals in this one, 27-24, and I do think they maintain that NFC lead for another week. Philadelphia Eagles at the Los Angeles Rams. It's another big game for an NFC West team right here. Obviously, the Eagles, if they're trying to stay pace with the Lions, it's a must-win game.
Yeah, and I actually think I'll let you elaborate on this in a minute. I think you're rolling with the Rams here. It seems like the Rams are kind of like your NFC team, Ryan. They're like your version of what the Cardinals are for me. And you always want to ride with them, always want to believe. And I can see the angle because the Eagles are coming off of a big-time, dominant home, divisional, emotional win with a lot of stakes at play. But I do think that the Eagles are going to come out ready. I think that the Eagles' D-line is going to be just a little bit too much for this Rams offensive line that struggled and has had a bunch of shifts this season. I like the Eagles here, 31-23, and I think that Saquon has a big game.
That's what I think it's going to be like a pretty decently high-scoring game. I think both offenses are going to perform well. And, I think where my X factor in this matchup is the Eagles necessarily haven't started very well the past two games they've played. Like they've turned it on. Like that's no doubt. Second half, they turned it on, played great football on both sides of the ball. But in the first half, they were a little sloppy against a Rams team that's very hard to stop on offense some weeks. I don't know if you can afford to have a slow start against this Rams team.
My matchup to watch here, we've talked about how good Quinyon Mitchell has been, and he has. As a rookie, he's been really the leader of that DB core with Darius Slay kind of taking a step back. Him and DeGene have come along nicely the last few weeks. Quinyon Mitchell against Puka Nacua. Who's going to win that matchup? Puka, ever since coming back from injury, has honestly been dominant, minus the game where he got ejected. And I think that it'll probably be the toughest test that Mitchell has had so far this year. Scary Terry is really good, and he did well in that matchup last week, exceptionally well, actually. But we'll see how
it makes a difference when you have Matthew Stafford thrown to him too.
Right, 100%.
Yeah, but like I mentioned, I just like the Rams in this one. Like their offensive talent is what I'm buying into. And the Eagles, you mentioned it, they're coming off of two big wins against division opponents, right? They're traveling to the West Coast at a late night game. I think they might start slow again. I think the Rams are going to punch them in the mouth early. They're playing for their playoff hopes. The Eagles are well ahead of schedule right now. Like this is an emotional Rams win that I think they are going to go upset the Eagles at home in this game. So I'm riding with the Rams 27-24. We'll get to the last game of the week. A little bit of friendly rivalry here, I guess, between Greg Roman and the Ravens. He is looking for his revenge.
Oh, no, that's not the only rivalry.
What do you say?
That's not the only rivalry, man. It's the horrible.
This is a horrible. That's not even like a rivalry, though. That's more like these guys.
Storyline, though.
These guys are the most buddy of like rivalries. of brothers that I've seen.
I don't know if you've never look up the stories that John has told about when they were kids. Though there's some pretty psychotic stuff Jim was out here doing to young John.
I gotta ask Till Daddy about him.
Well, I'll say the one story I do remember is that John told a story that I guess they were in some kind of wrestling match or fight in the pool or something, and Jim just took John's head and just held him underwater for like 2 minutes, and I guess he was establishing his dominance a lot as a kid, from what I read. But no, this is a really interesting matchup, and it's a really big matchup for both teams. For the Chargers, you're probably set as a wild card team. Kansas City, it's going to be tough to come back on them. You're probably going to have to win out, and that includes beating Kansas City in Arrowhead to have a shot at the AFC West. But for the Ravens, now the door has opened up a little bit more. Back in that AFC North, we were not feeling good about them after last week, and then the Steelers all of a sudden come in and lose in Cleveland, just like the Ravens did a few weeks back, about a month ago, actually. And the door is back open for the Ravens to come and get this AFC North and go back-to-back in the North, which I think, isn't it some crazy stat that it's been a long time since someone's won the AFC North back-to-back years, or am I wrong on that?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen that one.
I can't actually know, because I think the Bengals did go. Bengals went back-to-back in the North?
No.
I think so. No, they did in 21 and 22, didn't they?
No, they were a wild card team one year.
Are you sure, man? They had a home playoff game
so.
with the Raiders in 21. But anyways, the AFC North, all that being said, AFC North is always super competitive, and it's very impressive when you can win it back-to-back years. And now they have a chance to do that. I like the Ravens in this one. I think their defense, which was our largest concern, looked really good last week against the Steelers offense, and they kept them in the game as long as they could. But the Ravens had a lot of self-inflicted mistakes, a lot of penalties, and I don't expect them to do that back-to-back weeks. I think Lamar is going to be up to the challenge. I think both head coaches are going to really want this for bragging rights, sibling bragging rights. But I think Lamar is going to be motivated against a really good Chargers defense that his divisional rival, Joe Burrow, kind of showed some cracks in the second half last week. It'll be interesting to see how Lamar and the Baltimore offense tries to exploit this LA defense. But I'm rolling with the Ravens by 3. We actually have the same score here, same outcome, Baltimore 27-24, and I'll let you expand on that.
Yeah, I got Baltimore as well. I think that the Steelers' loss is huge for this one, even before I predicted the score. Like, the Ravens are fighting to stay in that division race, and now obviously the Steelers' loss gives them a little bit of help in that race. But
I mean, if they lose, they're 7-5 all of a sudden.
They are 7-5 all of a sudden, but I'm not worried about them missing. I ain't worried about the Ravens missing by any means. I think with Baltimore, this matchup in particular is enticing for me because of that second half comeback by the Cincinnati Bengals last week. I think the Chargers defense might be a little bit worse than people think right now, and I think the Ravens are going to be able to exploit it. What's interesting to see is that the Chargers' style of play holds up against a team like Baltimore. Can they keep Baltimore off the field when Baltimore has an elite front seven? I'm not necessarily sure they can. So I do think Baltimore goes and wins this game, but I do think it's going to be close. Obviously, Justin Herbert's been playing good football as of late. And another thing I'm interested in seeing, will they get Deontay Johnson involved? Like, this guy's playing under 20% of snaps every week right now, and obviously not a big role in the passing game. So we'll see what we get, but I got Baltimore in this one, 27-24, and that is all of our Week 12 predictions. Let us know down below some of your biggest locks for the week. Hit that subscribe button for more Blitz Sports Media content, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Yes, sir. Big news coming.